Hey everybody, it is Mr. Andrews. It is Friday, thankfully, and finally, for some of us maybe thinking that way. It is May the 1st, which is kind of hard to believe, but this is our sixth grade social studies live stream, so hopefully we get some of you guys in the chat here in the next couple minutes. And we'll take a look at the next assignment or two in our Blizzard bag. But I hope everybody's doing well, hope everybody's staying safe, and I hope everybody is finding some time to take some breaks and enjoy themselves as much as possible and as much as they can, whether it's doing things like just watching some new TV shows, movies, finding a new game to play and stuff like that. So hope everybody's doing well. I see we had a couple of gentlemen joining us in the chat, which is always nice to see. Thank you, Dakota and Dimitri. Hopefully you guys are having a good afternoon, or maybe some of us are just waking up from an all-nighter. But it's good to see you guys here. Like usual, we'll probably give it a few minutes. That way we can have some more students come in possibly, and we can go ahead and take a look at the next assignment together. So let me mark you guys down for being here, which is always appreciated. Been having some issues with YouTube. I made a video last night, and I was trying to upload it last night after I made it, and a couple times earlier today. That goes over another assignment. I'll talk more about that here in just a couple minutes, but it kept getting stuck at like 15%. I don't know why. It was kind of annoying because it's same file that I've used to upload other videos and stuff like that, but it was giving me I don't have it planned for today, Dimitri. No Quizlet or Kahoot. That could be something maybe we do possibly next week or in another stream. But yeah, I don't know what was going on with the video I was trying to upload. I'll try again. I don't know if there's just a lot of internet traffic going on at this time, so maybe it's taken forever. But Dakota, that's good to hear. The test came back negative. Always nice to see that. Generally what we've kind of done here so far this week, and as you guys are well aware, each grade gets the same material for the Blizzard bag stuff. So, Dimitri, you're in a good spot here, so you can always ask your sister for help, even though that may seem like the absolute last thing we want to do, or you guys can definitely just work together and try to knock it out that way. But we've pretty much for this week I've looked at the third assignment, and that being why government, and I'll kind of get into that at about like 10 after. That's normally when we've gotten started, and it's kind of allowed us to look at that a little bit more in detail and spend some good quality time on it, and like take us through right about 2 o'clock. So we'll give it a few more minutes for some more people to stroll in. Hopefully we get a few more, because I know 6th grade normally you guys have a pretty good turnout. We had quite a few last week, if I remember correctly. Yeah, which was nice to see. So how's everybody's week going so far? So everybody's week going well, I hope. Good. It's good to hear. So if you guys remember last week, we took a look at the first kind of two. Hey, David. Thank you for joining us, bud. Everybody has their name beginning with a D in the chat, which is unique. So David, Dimitri, and Dakota. Last week we kind of got started taking a look at the first couple assignments in this Blizzard bag, and those really dealt with checks and balances, the whole concept behind our structure of government. So we're going to shift gears, and like I said, we'll give it just a couple more minutes into kind of the origins of government and kind of why, or really get to see kind of why people thought of government and like what type of government is needed and stuff. So this next time, it's kind of interesting, I think. It's a little dose of philosophy as well, and kind of see some of these maybe bigger, kind of tougher questions that people tried to answer long ago. So we'll get started in just a few minutes. So if you don't already have your Blizzard bag packet, do make sure that you grab that. Or you can pull it up, on Google Classroom. Remember that was posted kind of shortly after then this round of Blizzard bags went out. Also, what I posted on Google Classroom just a little bit ago, shortly before I went live, and hopefully you guys can see it and hopefully it works. But I posted a video that I was trying to upload to YouTube. Like I said, it was giving me some difficulties earlier, so I want to make sure you guys still have access to it. That video, as described in the post, will cover the fourth assignment, the one that kind of follows the one we're looking at today. Generally, my plan was to kind of have these streams focus on completing 2 of the assignments, and there's 12 assignments in total. And this Blizzard bag packet is meant to cover a span of 6 weeks. Do 2 assignments per week. That should take us through the end of our school year, quote unquote. So, again, that video, again, I hope it works for you guys. It's about 20 minutes long. I don't think it's a whole lot longer than that, maybe 22 odd minutes or something. But that takes a look at assignment 4. And that one is called Who Rules. So it's a nice continuation of the one we're going to kind of check out today, called Why Government. And in about another minute or so, we'll go ahead and get started on that. David, how you doing, bud? You having a good week so far and a good day? Nice. Good to hear, sir. All right. So it's about 10 after or so. So we're going to go ahead and jump into assignment number 3 on our Blizzard bag. If you guys have your Blizzard bag packet in front of you, that'd be very helpful. If you remember, on one of the first couple pages, after the letter and everything, I kind of have the assignments numbered. Again, it's not a requirement that you complete them in order, but that's how we're going to approach them here on these live streams. So number 1, article and quiz on checks and balances, and number 2, the checks and balances diagram worksheet. That's what we completed last week. Since they really kind of focused on the same topic, we combined them into one stream. Today's stream, we're going to focus on assignment number 3, Why Government. The reading that I'll do the read aloud. Again, you're more than welcome to follow along, but if that doesn't work for you, if that's really not your thing, you could always read on your own. And if you have questions or concerns, comments, or anything like that, go ahead and ask questions in the chat, and then either myself or your classmates can help you out. Assignment number 4, Who Rules, the reading and activities. Again, I made a separate video for that. I'll try again to get it uploaded to YouTube after our stream here ends, but I did post it on Google Classroom if you want to check that out. this weekend, later today, or sometime next week when you have some time if you have questions over the fourth assignment. But what I'm going to be doing here is pulling up my copy of our assignment that we're going to look at today. It's called Why Government? Again, maybe backwards for you guys on my screen here, but it looks like this. Has the evil looking Quaker Oats man on the front. That's what I like to think of him, kind of what he looks like, the evil Quaker Oats dude, your box of oatmeal and stuff. So, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and do the reading out loud, gentlemen. If you got questions or something's not making sense, ask in the comments. That way I know to stop, and we can answer and address any concerns that you guys are going to have. So make sure you can follow along or read on your own. So why government? And kind of this big core question that really is the foundation of kind of what we consider civilization, I guess, or what makes people civilized is how they are going to be ruled. And we're going to see kind of two very differing opinions on this. So why government? Nope, not the cartoon tiger, talking about the other Hobbes. So Thomas Hobbes was an English scholar and philosopher. He was born in 1588 and later became a tutor to a very wealthy family. As a tutor, Hobbes had access to many books, traveled often, and met with many important thinkers. Hobbes lived in Paris through the English Civil Wars and was interested in the nature of government. He wrote about many topics, including politics, geometry, physics, religion, and history. Hobbes was one of the many scholars who tried to answer the question, why do we have government? And during the time that Hobbes lived, this was a very kind of common thing a lot of people were trying to answer, or they were willing to kind of give their 2 cents about it. It's all part of this time period known as the Enlightenment. All right, where we have these different philosophers, people's job really, or kind of what they strive to do and kind of made their purpose in life to do was to think about knowledge and how does one really try to complete this quest for knowledge and really think about what is truth, what is this universal truth that all humans maybe seek or share, and just really try to answer those big questions that drive humans. And one of those things is government. And Hobbes, and we'll read a little bit later about John Locke, they're going to again have some very differing ideas about it. So we're on to poor, nasty, brutish, and short. So Hobbes saw humans as naturally selfish and quick to fight. He believed that before there were governments, people lived in a state of nature. So in a state of nature, everyone had a right to everything. In order to get what they wanted, people would always be at war with everyone else. Nobody would produce anything like inventions, art, or even crops or tools because they would be afraid other people would take them away. Hobbes didn't paint a very pretty picture of life without government. And Hobbes is definitely one of the more interesting, I guess we'll say, characters of the Enlightenment, because his idea of what like humans at their base level kind of are these kind of nasty, wicked people that's only interested in themselves. Again, quick to fight, brutish, they're kind of nasty, and really violent in some ways, because if everybody has a claim, again, according to Hobbes, to everything, people are going to be willing to fight for those possessions. And again, if you're spending a lot of your time fighting or trying to compete for these resources, humans aren't going to have an opportunity or some time to come up with some more artistic expressions, things like art, inventions, focus on crop making or tool making and things like that. So one of the key ideas that Hobbes kind of comes up with is this state of nature, that people are naturally brutish, short, wicked, and quick and prone to violence. But Hobbes says, without a government, people are going to remain this way. So there needs to be a strong kind of government. And we're going to get into what the type of government that Hobbes is in favor of. Okay, so social contract, about halfway down the page here. So Hobbes lived at a time when many philosophers were thinking about the nature of government. He was one of the first of his era to discuss the idea of a social contract between people and their government. A contract is an agreement in which both sides agree to something in order to reach a shared goal. In Hobbes's view, people agreed to give up some rights and power in exchange for protection. But for Hobbes, the social contract was no two-way street. He believed that once the people agreed to hand over power in exchange for protection, they lost the right to overthrow, replace, or even question the government. Yeah, like Dmitri, apparently. So it's really interesting because seventh grade was kind of getting right into this time period called feudalism. A lot of people think when they hear feudalism, they think knights, the Middle Ages, stuff like that. And it is a big part of this idea that there is this contract or this agreement between those that are wealthy, like the king, or these lords and ladies that owned a lot of the land. And then in exchange for protection, they would have the serfs or your peasants kind of work the land. It was all part of this bigger picture that really carried throughout much of Western Europe and what we kind of consider Western civilization for close to 1,000 years. And this idea of a social contract, this agreement or this exchange between people and their government, people are willing to give up some of their rights and maybe some of their power in exchange for protection. But as Hobbes saw it, that once people do that, they didn't have the ability then to kind of question or to even try to change or replace the government if they didn't like it. All right, so we're going to take a look at Leviathan, probably Thomas Hobbes' most famous book here. And you can see the title there. It's an interesting title. I know it's in black and white, but if you Google it, you can kind of see more detail. So Leviathan. Okay. Hobbes wrote a book called Leviathan to explain how he thought governments should work. Hobbes wrote Leviathan during the English Civil War. He wrote about the social contract, and he spent much of the book trying to show that a strong central authority was the only way to avoid the evils of war. Hobbes believed that a single sovereign or ruler should have total authority over the people. He believed in a monarchy led by a king. That's because he thought that the government would work best if all the power rested in one place. No three branches for Hobbes. So again, they kind of make the comparison. Hey, Paul, to see how differing this is from this idea that, or from the system that we have here in the United States with our three branches of government. Hobbes was very much in favor of a strong king. And again, a king that had all the power. It wasn't then delegated or given to like a parliament, kind of what we see today where countries still have a king or queen. Today, kings or queens are more or less just figureheads. They don't have any real kind of governing power. But this wasn't the case for much of, kind of more modern Western civilization. Again, this time of the Middle Ages, famous for kings and queens, lasted for about 1,000 years. And these kings or queens did have ultimate power. And Hobbes was a big fan of that. He believed that people needed to be ruled by a strong ruler. Again, and that power needed to be in one person. That way the power wasn't questioned. It wasn't going to be debated or wasn't going to be lessened by any check or balance by another branch of government. It was solely going to be just in one person. That way decisions can get made quicker. And again, you had the authority and maybe some fear, I guess, also kind of rolled up into this one person, this sovereign, this king, and sometimes queen. Okay, so I see a couple more. Lucas, it looks like. Lucas, thank you for joining us, bud. We're going over the third assignment, Lucas, which is called Why Government. If you have your Blizzard bag, I say look for the evil Quaker Oats man. His real name is actually Thomas Hobbes. So that's what we're going over. I'm doing the reading here, and then got a little bit more reading, and then we'll kind of get into the activities. We're just about on the very bottom where it says monarchy, not democracy. So monarchy, not democracy. That's the last section of the reading on page 1. So monarchy, not democracy. So many political thinkers, including America's founding fathers, built on Hobbes' ideas, especially the idea of the social contract. Hobbes was more concerned with protection and order than rights, meaning rights for people, like personal liberties or personal freedoms. But people like John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, other philosophers of the time, and we're going to read more about Locke in just a minute, changed the focus from monarchy to democracy, or power with the people, instead of a sovereign. They began to see that people have rights and that must be protected even from the government. Okay. So again, this is where we're going to start seeing this change or this difference between Thomas Hobbes on one end and John Locke on another. But during this time of the Enlightenment, kind of in the mid to late 1500s up through about the early 1700s, this time period of the Enlightenment where people really start calling into question, okay, why does government exist, and what is the best form of government? How should people be ruled, and do people need to be ruled, and that kind of thing. So there's going to be a wide spectrum of opinions on this matter. So we saw John Locke, again, who's in favor of a monarchy, especially a strong king with total authority. He believes that people are naturally wicked and kind of quick and prone to violence, so they need to be ruled in order to make sure that there's not just constant chaos or constant war. Only a strong king would eliminate a war, according to Hobbes. So now we're going to look at the second page of Why Government. We're going to look at John Locke in just a second. Okay, so a man with many hats. Not literally, but figuratively, of course. I mean, I guess he could have had many hats, but we don't really know. So John Locke was born in England in 1632, at about the same time that Hobbes was about to begin his life's work as a philosopher. Locke considered becoming a minister, started his career as a doctor, but ended up as a philosopher and political scientist. And that's what they mean, man with many hats. So he wanted to do this, but then he changed that. Then he wanted to go here, but then ended up doing this thing. So he wasn't really sure, it seemed like, what he wanted to do, but then he finally settled on a philosopher and political scientist. He had many interests and produced a number of writings that influenced future leaders. One of those leaders was Thomas Jefferson, who helped America gain independence from Britain nearly 150 years after Locke was born. Jefferson studied Locke's writings, and Locke's ideas show up in our own Constitution. So, Thomas Jefferson, as they bring up, is very heavily influenced by John Locke and his writings, and we're gonna see some almost straight up copying that Thomas Jefferson does from John Locke, because these ideas that Locke came up with really resonated and struck a chord with people like Jefferson and some of the other founding fathers here in the United States. And probably what John Locke is best known for is this next part that we're going to get into. You can see with the piece of paper over there, but this idea called the blank slate, or the tabula rasa. So we'll kind of get more into detail with that here in just a second. So the blank slate. So one of Locke's books, called An Essay Concerning Human Understanding, took over 18 years to write. In it, he says that people are born with a mind like a tabula rasa, which means a blank slate or page. And look at the picture just to the side of the paragraph here. During life, the blank slate gets filled up with the things a person experiences with the five senses. He said people learn and develop differently because they are exposed to different things. The one thing people have in common is that they are all human and share a human nature that is the same for all people everywhere. So yeah, for the most part, in some ways, yeah, Thomas Jefferson is seen as like a copycat. But he does tweak and change some things so that it fits the United States, or what ultimately becomes the United States, a little bit more. But yeah, this is kind of Locke's, or one of his big kind of takeaways, is this this concept of a blank slate, that people, as soon as we're born, and humans, as soon as we are born, have a blank slate, and that their mind is really shaped and kind of influenced by their experiences. And if you look at this on kind of a very fundamental or basic point here, it kind of makes sense. You can have siblings who all maybe grow up in the same household. They're all going to be kind of their own different person. They're not all just going to be copies of each other. I'm the youngest of three brothers. I'm the like I said, I'm the youngest, so I'm the baby of the family. But my two older brothers, we're all very different. We may look very kind of similar in some ways, but we may look very kind of similar in some ways, but we all kind of took different career paths. We're all doing different things, and we just kind of have our own thing going on. And I'm sure that's true for all of you guys as well who have siblings. So, your life really does kind of, or your experiences in life really kind of do shape who you are and who you become. So that's what is meant by a tabula rasa, this blank slate, or think of an empty page that's just going to get filled and filled as you live out your life. So another one of these concepts that Locke is known for, if we're looking back at the reading, is this idea of natural rights. So people are born with a blank slate, and that people are also born with natural rights. So Locke imagined a set of natural rights that human beings share. These are the right to life, liberty, and property. Life refers to the fact that people want to live and will fight to survive. Liberty means that people want to be as free as possible and to make their own decisions. And property represents the fact that people want to own things that help them survive, such as land, food, and tools. Locke believed these rights aren't given to the people, but they are born with them. So this is one of the big points, or one of the big areas in which Jefferson is kind of like a copycat, as Dimitri points out. When we're kind of writing some of our founding documents here in the United States, there's the very famous line, "Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." And this idea really does come or originate with John Locke, who kind of comes up with this idea that these are innate, these are natural rights that people are born with. People are born with the right to life, kind of the right to liberty, and a right to property. And Thomas Jefferson kind of changes it a little bit to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that people have this, or should have, and should be born with this ability to kind of pursue kind of anything in their life that makes them happy. In some ways it's very similar to this idea of property, but in some ways you can see how it's different. So one of the many ways that the United States is influenced by a lot of these Enlightenment thinkers, and even how the United States is influenced by those like the ancient Greeks and the Romans, who come up with this idea of a democracy or a republic where people represent larger groups. So really, why do we need a government? That's getting close to the bottom of the second page of reading. And again, make sure we're paying attention to the visuals, the images here, because they do help kind of make sense of these bigger concepts. So people need life, liberty, and property, that checklist on the side. So why do we need a government? Locke's going to offer his reasons, or his point as, what can a government provide? They can offer protections and provide some services to people. So Locke also wondered what life would be like if people didn't have a government. Like Hobbes, he believed this would lead to a state of nature with no rules, no one in charge, and no way for people to protect their natural rights. So very much like Hobbes, he agrees that without a type of government in place, people are going to live in a state of nature. Okay, there's no rules, no order, no one in charge. There's going to be chaos. There's going to be violence. So that's one point where they do agree. But really beyond that is where they kind of have very stark differences. He believed the purpose of government is to end the state of nature and give people certain protections. But Locke also believed that government should protect people's natural rights. Again, this is the big difference between switching the names there, Hobbes and Locke, is that Hobbes also, coming up with this idea of the state of nature, that people are naturally wicked, brutish, quick to violence, stuff like that. So they need to be ruled. They need to be ruled, though, by a powerful single person, a king. Locke, on the other hand, says, okay, yes, without a type of government, people are going to be kind of wicked. There's going to be chaos. There's not going to be order, but we need a government in place. We need one in which a government gets the power from the people and protects their rights and doesn't necessarily take them away. And Locke as well also comes up with this idea of the social contract. Again, I like the visual that they have here, this handshaking, one representing the government and one representing the people. So that's what this last part is going to get into. So social contract. Locke believed a government can only be legitimate or valid if it is based on the social contract with citizens. Again, this kind of agreement. For Locke, the social contract between a government and its people worked both ways. The people agree to give up some freedoms, but only if the government agrees to protect everyone's rights, like life, liberty, and property. If the government fails to deliver, the people have the right to revolt, like the colonists did during the American Revolution. This two-way exchange between citizens and government was very different from Hobbes's view. Yeah, so Hobbes really saw it as kind of this one-way street, that the people give up some of their rights and stuff like that in order for protection. They can't question the government. Locke sees it the other way, that the people are giving some power to the government in exchange that the government then protect their rights, like life, liberty, and property. And if the government fails to carry out that promise, the people have a right to change or abolish it or to revolt. And they give the example of what the American colonists did, leading to the American Revolution. And that's ultimately kind of how the founding fathers and those early American colonists saw, is that this contract, this agreement that these citizens had with the British government wasn't being held up on the British government's end. These early, American heroes that you guys will see about and kind of go more into detail in 8th grade, they definitely viewed themselves as British citizens. Okay, George Washington, what we know as like the founding of our country, the father of our country, he fought for the British during the French and Indian War, the big war that really was before the American Revolution. And many others, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, all really considered themselves British citizens. But what really becomes an issue is that they're not being represented. They don't have a voice in government. And so after a lot of attempts of trying to, plead with the government, the British government that is, and King George, they decided that the best way for them to kind of live out their life is to maybe try to break away and become their own country. That's kind of where the 8th grade ended up. They finished the American Revolution, and we're getting into the formation of our government and stuff like that. But, it's a nice example that they pull in with the American Revolution. All right, so that's the reading for this assignment for the third one, Why Government. And you're going to notice that a lot of these, iCivics style assignments, okay, that's, a lot of the assignments in this next Blizzard bag are going to be from iCivics because it's more kind of government and citizenship and civics based. So it's a really good program and curriculum set that I've been using the last couple of years, but there's always going to be like a front and back page reading. I like how they broke it down into these like very easy to digest paragraphs with the visuals there to help out and reinforce as well. And then there's going to be just a couple short activities that follow. And that's why we're spending a little bit more time kind of going over this more detailed and more in depth. And that's why I made the separate video for the assignment number 4. Again, I'll try to post that onto YouTube. I was having some issues earlier, but it is posted on Google Classroom for assignment number 4. But let's go ahead and take a look at the activities that we have. And I'm going to do a couple of these with you. I've been doing them with the 7th and 8th graders earlier this week. Been helping them out a little bit. So you don't necessarily need to go in order. It starts with activity A, sketch it out, then B, the Venn diagram and stuff like that. Don't need to, but I always, how my mind is, I always kind of like to knock things out in order. So you're going to see that mine's complete, okay? That's because on one day I worked with the 8th grade, completed one side, to complete the other side yesterday. And now for you guys, I kind of have a good example to work with and kind of show some nice templates that you guys could possibly use or take ideas from. So activity A is called Sketch It Out. It's going to ask us to use words and images to create cartoons showing the, quote, big ideas of Hobbes and Locke. Now, when it says images, again, they don't need to be full-on beautiful masterpiece sketches. I mean, if you want to take your time on them so they look really good, great. That's awesome. More power to you. Mine are these also beautiful stick figures, okay? So I know they're very basic. They're very kind of quick, but we don't need to spend a half hour on each little box here. I get that some of us maybe aren't as artistically gifted as others. I'm definitely not. I fall in the stick figures is the best I can do, and that's fine. But it's also asking us to use some words as well. So what I've been telling some of the other students is, guys, just keep it simple and use kind of key phrases, okay? Keep the words or the phrases short. If I'm not even really writing complete sentences. I'm just writing big ideas, maybe 5 words at most per little box. And really what it's doing here is looking at this difference between Thomas Hobbes and John Locke in these 3 separate parts. Sorry, I think one of my kiddos is stirring a little bit, but it seems to have calmed down, so we'll continue on. So again, what this is really looking at is just having us compare and contrast Thomas Hobbes and John Locke in the terms of state and nature, social contract, and government. Okay, so these so in the oval, kind of in the middle here, you see these questions. These are really just meant to kind of help and guide your thinking. You don't need to answer these explicitly, but they're just really meant to help you. Okay. How I've been approaching this, again, this isn't something that you absolutely need to do, but if you want to do yours another way or follow kind of the example that I have here, that's totally fine. But how I've been doing this is I've been completing the entire side for one person at a time. So Thomas Hobbes, his state and nature. Again, these guiding questions: how would it look? What's happening? What's not happening? So, really ask yourself, what does Thomas Hobbes feel about the state of nature? Or how does he describe the state of nature? And refer back to your text, to the reading here. You can pull from that. So, again, ask yourself, how does Thomas Hobbes view the state of nature? So if you want to take a minute to think about that, go on ahead. If somebody could help everybody out, maybe put it there in the chat if you guys like. So how does Thomas Hobbes view this state of nature? And then shortly I'll show you my example that I came up with. And then the sketches, if you're getting to that point, don't need to be super detailed. Stick figures are fine. That's kind of what I'm doing with mine. But this idea of a state of nature for Thomas Hobbes is that there'd be a lot of fighting. Okay, so I know I'm blowing it out with the white here. So there's going to be a lot of fighting. There's going to be conflict. Okay, everybody wants or feels that they're entitled to everything. So I'm just keeping my words short here. Okay, in my picture, it's like two guys fighting, or this one guy trying to chase this guy. Yeah, I know it kind of looks like maybe he's trying to hug him with my beautiful sketch. But I like the example there. So maybe they are going to fight or kind of come into conflict over a type of food source, because it's kind of almost barbaric in some ways. So again, keep it simple. Something one of my professors at Kent State told us. He used this method called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. He always would write that on the whiteboard and stuff. Don't try to outdo yourself here. Just keep it manageable. I know a lot of us got a lot of work to do besides what we're asking you to do here with the school, whether it's looking after siblings or helping out around the house and stuff like that. So just keep it simple. So, and if you want to, you can kind of just go over. If you want to do Thomas Hobbes, then John Locke for the same thing, you can. Or, what I did was I completed John Locke for all of them. And then I completed yesterday everything for John Locke. So it's ultimately up to you. Okay. So, if you want to look at it with this, immediate comparison. So studies and math to finish. Nice. Good. Nice job, Dimitri. So John Locke, what does he see in the state of nature? In a lot of ways, it's very similar. There's not going to be order, and the government's not, or since there is no government in the state of nature, there's no protection of people's natural rights. So that's kind of what I put here for John Locke. No protection of natural rights. Again, I know I'm blowing out the shot here, so I'm going to try to help a little bit. And with these beautiful little, text bubbles, I just have one guy going like, he's trying to chase this other guy, and stick figures to the rescue to help out, get the point across. Just keep it manageable, keep it kind of short, keep it simple to have this easier for you. Make, work smarter, not harder. So if you're looking at the state of nature, there is some, similarities between Thomas Hobbes and John Locke. Then if you look down between the social contract, they have those guiding questions. So who's involved? What is being exchanged? Obviously, with this social contract, in both cases, it's really going to be people and the government, and kind of what is being exchanged. Is it protection? Is it rights? Protection of rights? Things like that. Continue on with the stick figures for like Thomas Hobbes here. I have a person giving a king something. It's a little box that says rights. Okay. And people give up rights for protection. That's the key words that I have here to kind of help get this point across. And then for John Locke, I have more stick figures. Again, it looks like citizens and the government. I try to draw them shaking hands. I again kind of taking the idea from the reading, that little picture at the very bottom. So just people shaking hands. If you can do that better than I can, great, more power to you. And the wording that I used here, is that give up some rights. The people or the citizens are giving up some rights in exchange for protection of life, liberty, and property. And this arrow is pointing both ways because it's not this one-way street. It's a two-way street. Okay, there's this agreement, or according to Locke, there should be this agreement between the citizens and the government. And then for the last box, the last box is the government type. Who's the government? Does it ever change? So, what is the ideal or best form of government according to Thomas Hobbes? And according to John Locke, what is the best form of government? I kind of let you guys figure that one out on your own. I kind of showed you my two examples for each. But again, don't try to work or make the work too difficult on yourselves. Keep it simple. Stick figures are fine. If you can do better than stick figures, that's totally great. And again, you don't need complete sentences or many paragraphs for these explanations. Just keep it pretty simple. So I'll give you a minute or so, or a couple minutes here to kind of finish that up if you need to. And then I'll kind of quickly go over some key points for the following activities: B, C, and D. Okay. So I'm hoping I can get that video to YouTube after today's stream. I don't know why it's giving me issues. All right, about another minute here, and then we'll look at the next page, the next set of activities. Okay. Sorry, just trying to get all my things ready here. All right, so the second page of the activities for why government. So on the second page, we have B, C, and D. Okay, so we see the Venn diagram with the two ovals. And if you need a little refresher on how Venn diagrams work, got the two circles or ovals in this case. Each are being represented by a different topic or concept here. In this case, we have the state of nature and social contract. Where they overlap, that's what they have in common. Okay, the space where they are separate, that's what is unique to each part. Okay. So you have a total of like 10 options here, 10 little word or quick phrase. If you look at the directions, it says put the number of the word in the right category. So you don't need to write the whole thing. So for like number 10, you don't need to say rights are protected, because definitely you're not going to have any room. Just put the number. Okay. If you look closely, what I've done to kind of help the students out is I put a number, again, probably backwards for you, so my bad, a number by each section to show you guys how many answers there should be. So in this state of nature circle, or the state of nature half, there should be two numbers or two answers, okay, from the set of 10 over here. And there should be 4 in the middle, what they have in common, okay? And at the very bottom, the social contract, there should be 4 as well. That's not backwards. Okay, I wasn't sure. So what I see is mine. What I see is backwards on mine. But the social contract, that should have 4 numbers as well. Again, you don't need to write the whole word or words, just write the number. I've also done like one example in each just to kind of get us going. Okay. So I would say try to knock out the most obvious that are apparent. Remember, kind of key concept state of nature, where both Hobbes and Locke kind of agree, is that the state of nature is that people are kind of wicked. People are violent. There's no order. There's chaos. There's no government. Social contract. It's this agreement between the government and the people. Maybe rights and things like that are going to be protected. For some, maybe not. So one that kind of jumps out to me right away is number 6, no laws. Okay. I know where I would put no laws at. Does anybody have an idea of maybe where they would put number 6, no laws? As I try to knock out the ones that make the most sense or that are the most obvious to you. One that jumps out to me, again, is number 6, where it says no laws. Okay, and then also the one right up, after that, number 7, laws. That one's also going to be, yeah. So it is anarchy for the most part, and you're correct, Dakota. It would be in state of nature. So then cross out 6, and then 7. Well, if there's no laws, okay, in a state of nature, obviously there must be laws in a social contract, whether they are maybe kind of hard laws set forth by a king, or maybe they're more agreed upon laws in a democracy. So again, now we only need 1 more in this first part and only 3 more here. So what is one that they would both share? What is one that they would both share? Do we think? This one may be a little tricky. Or if you want to look at another one that's maybe very obvious, I can see another one maybe closer towards the end that's kind of jumping out at me that may fall under that state of nature. Yeah, so maybe try to see which ones are kind of obvious. I might just go ahead and look at kind of the first couple here. I'm going to look at number 2 for life. Okay, is life that's something that is solely just in state of nature? Is that something that is just solely in social contract, or could that be something that is shared by both? Okay. Do you have life in a state of nature, or do you have life in social contract, or is it both? And in this case, number 2, this life, that is going to be something that is shared by both. Even in a crazy state of nature or where there's anarchy, people still have their life. So number 2 would be one that falls in this shared category. Okay. Now we have only 3 other ones that we need to find. So again, the state of nature only has 2. Okay. The social contract has a total of 4, but we already got 1 figured out, so there's 3 left. And in the middle, we have life. This is something that both of them share, so we only need 3 more as well. So that, in a sense, is really how you want to look at the Venn diagram. And a little hint, ones where they're kind of shared that may be kind of earlier in the list, and social contract and stuff like that may be a little bit later. I won't tell you which ones explicitly, and it's not going to apply 100%, but for a general sense, if you want to look at it that way, that may help out a little bit. So for the next part, we got just a little under 10 minutes, Dakota. So it's a little under 10 minutes. I want to finish kind of going over these last activities, C and D, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay. So C is asking, what's the connection? Wants us to describe how the words listed are connected to one another. And for this part, I would say just keep it simple. Keep it to about one sentence or some key words if you need to. So number one, life, liberty, and property. How are those three words connected? Okay. You can go back into the reading. Okay. Whose idea was life, liberty, and property? Who came up with that idea? Was it Thomas Hobbes or was it John Locke? Okay. So ask yourself that question. How are those three connected? Okay. If you go back into your reading, okay. Well, it's definitely not something that Hobbes came up with because he thought people are going to be wicked. People need to be ruled by a monarch, by a king. Life, liberty, and property are natural rights. Okay, something that they are born with. It is natural, and that was Locke's idea. So, in a way that they're connected, I would write something as simple as these are natural rights according to Locke. Okay? Keep it short, keep it simple. Okay? So these are natural rights, life, liberty, and property, according to Locke. Okay, so take that approach for the next couple. So how are state of nature and war connected? Okay, are those two opposites? Are they similar? Does one influence the other? That kind of thinking might help us here. And then number 3 is asking government and social contract. How are those two concepts, how are those two terms connected? Is there a social contract between the government and somebody else or something else? Does the government give a social contract? Or, this really trying to figure out and pinpoint how these are connected. So that's really the objective, the point here for C is to look at these connections between these terms. Again, kind of did number 1 as an example for you. So life, liberty, and property, again, those are natural rights according to John Locke. Those rights that you are born with. A state of nature and war, how are those connected? Does one influence the other? You have war in a state of nature, perhaps. You really don't know. You need to go back into the text and double check. And number 3, again, government and social contract. How are those connected? Definitely keep your reading with you so you can refer back to it. And finally, part D. Okay, part D, saying agree or disagree. So it's having us read each statement and determine if Hobbes and Locke would agree. So initially, maybe when we look at this, we might say, is it Hobbes saying this or Locke saying this? But the point to this one, we're trying to determine if that they would both agree to the statement. So it's kind of a yes or no. So if we're looking at these 3 statements, there are no laws in a state of nature, and people are always at war. Would both Hobbes and Locke agree with this statement? Would they agree? Yes. Or would they disagree? No. So whichever one you think it is, you would just circle. Okay. And they do share a similarity in which they think about the nature of people. What about number 2 then? Government is needed to create laws, protect people, and provide services. Okay. So is that something that they would both agree on, or is that one where maybe one sees it that way and the other does not see it that way? Or would it be the third one? The ruler should be someone that has complete power and cannot be overthrown if the people are unhappy. Is that a statement that both Thomas Hobbes and John Locke would agree on? So again, just circle agree or disagree. Then the part right beneath, okay, on the lines, it's saying, okay, there's going to be one where they disagree. So we're letting you guys know that up front. One of these 3 statements, there is going to be a disagreement. 2 of them obviously then mean that they agree. So on the statement where they disagree, explain how Locke saw things differently. Okay. So again, refer back to the text so you can double check and make sure you're correct. Okay. So this part, you're just circling in which statement you think that that both would agree, or maybe where one thinks that way and the other disagrees. And for the one that somebody disagrees, and they maybe give you a little hint as to who is going to disagree. It says on the statement where they disagree, explain how Locke saw things differently. Okay, so that's letting us know that Locke saw things one way, and maybe this is Hobbes thinking. Well, I hope that covers just about everything for assignment 3. Again, why government? Thank you for those gentlemen that joined us and active in the chat and participated and stuff like that. It's very much appreciated. All my crazy kiddos are kind of waking up from their nap, so it's about time for me to kind of wrap things up here. Like I said, I did make a separate video for the 4th assignment. Okay, that is called "Who Rules." I posted that video on Google Classroom. I was having some issues posting it on YouTube earlier. I will try again, so maybe it comes up later this afternoon or earlier this evening. If you have questions or comments about that separate video, refer to the thing I uploaded on Google Classroom, or ask on Google Classroom or in the Hangouts chat that we have. We'll do everything we can to help you out. But next week our plan is to go ahead and take a look at the next set of assignments that really kind of focus on a little bit more detail with this social contract. This News ELA article, and possibly a dive into democracy, kind of looking at the foundations of democracy. But again, gentlemen, thank you for staying on with us, participating. Until then, have a good weekend. Stay safe. Stay inside as much as you can. I know the weather's not making it easy for us. It's been kind of crap weather for the last few days. I've been wanting to get outside but can't. But we'll see you, gentlemen. I'll keep you posted on any updates about the video and stuff like that. But until then, we'll see you next week. Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye.